Well, thanks very much. It's been, of course, an amazing experience to work with Don. When he first came to me, he said, um, I talked to the chancellor, and he says, well, you have to figure out who you're going to report to and what department you want to be in. And he said, well, I think I want to report to Larry Smarr. And I thought, oh my God, that is such a challenge concept. I, I, there's no way in the world I feel adequate to that task. So what in the world we've done is had many in-depth one-on-one discussions, and it's an extraordinary mind that you find as you spend time with Don. You might wonder why the design lab is in the Qualcomm Institute, the UCSD division of Cal 2. It's because it's essentially the capstone of everything we do. When we came up with this idea of an institute that would have only cross-disciplinary projects in it and would span all the way from sort of atomic physics to society, we ended up with 24, I guess, of the departments on the campus that work here on projects. But the one thing that was missing was really design, and in particular user-centered design, because what we go after are the real problems in the world, and then you bring together the kind of multidisciplinary teams it takes to attack those problems. So it's almost by definition user-centered design, and to have the sort of incredible people that have been pulled together by Don in the Design Lab is just it's just almost essential for where we're going. Now, you'll notice that we've incubated the Design Lab as we incubated the Nano Engineering Department for 3 or 4 years before it went into its new building. And that's one of the things we do. We incubate and birth things that then grow to much larger scale. And in fact, the fact that we have a virtual version of the building in our virtual reality cave now, not 2021, is a good indication of how we live in the future and report back. That's sort of our fundamental project. So, go back to what you were mentioning about the birth of neural networks and what that has come to mean in the world. Just as an example of the impact from all the way back when Don was founding the CogSci department and working with these people who become leaders of the whole world's movement and current deep learning. In this auditorium on Monday, we are going to have something like 150 people who are doing deep hands-on work with an NSF project we have to put machine learning on a highly distributed national scale, international scale distributed system with a bandwidth of 1,000 times the internet and ability to do massive amounts of data. And the next day it's going to be applied to the cinema industry. And so what better place to have it than on the same floor as the design lab? When I was, some of you may know that I was involved in a multidisciplinary project in personalizing surgery a few years ago. And when I pulled together this cross-disciplinary team to work on what turned out to be my surgery, Don was there because he's got this whole approach to rethinking the whole practice of medicine from a much more patient-centered, user-centered point of view. And I think it's going to actually have a lot of impact as we go forward. I guess I'd just end by saying that, there aren't many real listeners in the world. One of the things that always struck me when Don would describe his methodology for design is he would go into a company or an environment and just go around and talk to people and sort of observe without disturbing the system, just understand it. And that's not easy to do, for humans. But Don has taken it to an amazing level. And I'm going to give you what you may think of as a trivial example, but I was just so impressed. Don and I were walking across campus, and My shoes have very thick shoelaces, and they kept coming undone. And of course, I just kept tying them back just the way I always tied my shoes, right? And Don didn't say anything. He just observed. And about the second time, third time this happened, he said, you know, there might be a better way to design that knot in your shoes. Instead of going around this way, why don't you go around this way? Because what you're creating is a slip knot. It keeps coming. And I said, you know, that's brilliant. Because, of course, one way they pull together tighter, the other way they loosen. It's just a simple example of this ability to look at the world and not be distracted by what everybody thinks is the right way to do something, but rather from basic principles to understand how it could be better and then to implement that. And so it's just a simple example, but I think if you look through his whole life of seeing the world through different eyes, of imagining how things could be better, and then implementing that through design, that's what makes him a very special person, very special human being, and I'm honored that I'm his non-boss.